Okay, let's get started adding some laces to our shoes. Now Modo has this cool tool called Lace Item, and it makes this whole process a lot easier. But I'm not going to kid you, you will be spending some time tweaking and just adjusting that lace to make it just right. So let's just dive right in, shall we? So the first thing I want to do is identify the eyelets. Basically, I want to create a selection set for the eyelets so that the tool knows how to thread the laces. And we'll do that by selecting edge loops within each of the eyelets. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make sure that your two item layers are active, and then we want to be in edge mode. And for this particular process, you can, like I said, you can do it polygon or edges. And I'm going to just double click on that edge there, and this edge here, and maybe this guy here, holding down the shift key all the while to add to that selection. And I'm just going to walk around the whole shoe to do this. There we go. Once you have all of your eyelets selected, then the next thing we want to do is create a selection set. So go right up here, click that, and I'm going to go to New Set, call it Eyelets, which is what I already had in there, and we're done. And now let's go ahead and add an item, and we'll type in lace, and there it is, lace item. And I'm going to move it to the top. Now, let's go from top down in this lace item properties panel. So at the top, what we want to do is align the laces to a mesh of some sort. And the alignment mesh is going to be the tongue. So I'm going to click on that, go click on that to drop it down, go to tongue, and there we are. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to mark the eyelets. Now we already selected our edge loops. However, we need to recall that selection set for the lace items mark eyelets feature. Just make sure that the eye stays and the saddle item are both selected, and then go into edge mode, and then go ahead and select your selection sets. And just select quick select, that's it. Okay, now jump back into the lace item, keeping these still active as layers. And we'll go to mark eyelets. And now, as you can see, the lace item threaded a curve, spline curve, through all of our eyelets, but it did so in kind of a random manner. So what we need to do is give it an order with which we want to thread the lace. Okay, so to do that, we need to order the eyelets. So I'm going to click on Order Eyelets, and you'll see these little blue dots appear, and it's going to let you select in order how you want to thread this lace. So I'm going to start up here. Let's start, this one is 0, this one will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and there we are. Now I'm going to hide my wireframe here so that we can see the spline curve a little easier. And you can see how it threads through all of those loops, edge loops we selected. So that's great. Now, next thing we want to do, we can adjust the arching amount. As you can see, it's arched quite high. So I'm going to just bring that down a bit by dragging, clicking on this little arrow here and dragging. Now, I'm not too worried about it kind of receding into the tongue area right now. We can fix that later. All right, now I noticed too that if we go over, under, however, when I get to this eyelet right here, it goes over, under, and I want to flip the tangents. So I'm going to go here where it says flip tangents, and those blue little dots come back for us, and it's going to let you select on which of these tangent points you want to flip. In this case, I think it's this one right here. We'll flip that. There we go. I think the next thing I want to do is just edit this lace curve a little bit manually. So I can go to here and I can freeze and edit this lace curve. And now it turned it into a Bezier curve for me to edit. And let's go ahead and bring this guy up. And I'll just speed through this real quickly for you. Sometimes when you're working with Bezier curves and adjusting their tangent handles, it's best to work in quad mode so you can quickly see the top and side views and make adjustments in each of those viewports as needed. But I'm just going to keep working like this. All right, so let's go ahead and build the geometry for this lace. And how do we do that? Well, we build the lace geometry. Click right down there. And it's going to come up with some options for us. Now, we can use a new curve mesh, or we can build our own geometry. What the geometry actually is simply a cross-section made of either a polygon or it could be made of a curve, a closed curve. And that curve will act as a cross-section to the lace. It's going to extrude that along the lace curve there, as you can see. So you can create your own kind of shape, your own cross-section shape if you want to do that. Now for the profile preset, Modo has a bunch of curve profiles that you can call up and use those as a cross-section. You can do polygon strips, which is kind of nice to work with sometimes because it's just a single strip of polygons that threads its way through this curve and allows you to manipulate that without having a lot of geometry on your screen at the same time. Sometimes that's easier to work with than a full three-dimensional lace. However, I'm going to go to New Curve Mesh, and it's going to go ahead and create a kind of a closed oval shape for me, and it's going to extrude that along the lace there. I'll just show you here. Click OK, and there it is. Now let's take a look at what it actually looks like here. I'll go to my item mode, click on that, hit the W key, just move it out so you can see it. Now this is also a fully editable item here, and if I edit this, if I go to polygons, click on it, I can actually change the shape of this, and you can see the lace on the shoe changing shape. I can flatten it, make it thicker, whatever I want to do. I can just, also add additional control vectors on here and just kind of create my own cross section. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and start editing this a little bit more. And we can see that we have some twists here and there. Now, if you get a lot of twists on these eyelet tangencies here, you can actually go into the mesh item here. I'm going to click on that. And go to the curve sweep here. Curve sweep edge item. And where it says align, we can actually change how it's aligned to the normals. If you go to automatic, sometimes that will clean up a lot of the twisting here, but you might get some twisting along the top like we've got here. Now we can fix that later on with another tool, but just be aware that that does affect it. Curve direction and automatic are pretty much the same thing. So I'm not too bothered by this. I think this might work well for me, and I'll have to see. You can always change it later. You're not committed to this right off the bat, but we can change things later. But again, now that we have this, we can change a few of the parameters. If I go down here right now at the very bottom where it says extruded shape size, we can increase the size of our lace, so the width of that lace. But I'm going to leave it right about there, I think. 3 3.7. It looks about right. You can make it thicker or thinner. I've seen all kinds of lace thicknesses out there, so whatever you choose, I'm sure will be fine. Now we want to go ahead and edit the curves, again, the tangencies on this Bezier curve, so that it doesn't protrude or intrude on some of the parts of the sneaker here. So let's go back to the lace item, freeze and edit. Okay, and yeah, just start pulling some of this geometry around. Drop that down, and let's drag this up. So this phase of the process is where you're going to spend the bulk of your time. Don't be surprised if you find yourself spending probably about an hour or so just dialing in the tangencies and the flow of that lace across the shoe. But I think it's time well spent, because I think that laces, well done laces, add a lot of realism to your model. Okay, so once you're happy with how your laces are threading through the eyelets, there's another little cool tool that allows you to add some more deformation to this lace, and it's called the edit and deform points. Okay, and what they are is it's going to allow you to put points along this curve that are going to allow you to twist or squeeze that lace. So let me show you. It's easier to show you than to tell you here. So let's just say I want to pinch this lace right around this eyelet. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, click there. It adds a little node. I'm going to bring up the properties, pin the properties out there, and I'm going to scale this. And as I scale it, you can see that it is scaling that lace. Now I might not want it to the spread to be quite that big, so I can just decrease the spread. There we go. And I can actually by moving the percentage, you can change the location of this particular point along that curve. So if I hold down the control key, which is probably the best way to do that, you just drag this little arrow left and right, little sliders there. There you go. Now hold down the shift key, and I'm going to do the same thing to this tangent right here. Boom. And applies the same settings so each time. So I can just walk through and do that to all of these very quickly, holding down the shift key and clicking. There we go. And now, suppose I want to freeze this into actual geometry, which we'll eventually have to do anyway. I'm going to expand this lace item locator. I'm going to click on the curve geometry. Then I'm going to right click on it and drop down to freeze mesh operations, but I want to duplicate and freeze it. So it'll create a duplicate, and the duplicate is here. And notice it turned off the procedural one. I'm just going to bring it to the top there. And then we can just hide that whole lace item thing here. And there we are. Now this is actual geometry that we can move and adjust, maybe with the element move tools, if you want to play with it a little bit more here and there. Maybe it's drop down a little here. Now when you're using the element move tool on something like this, it's always best to go into its settings and click off use connectivity. Because if you ignore connectivity, it's going to grab everything within its range. But if you have use connectivity, you can grab just a single span of that lace. So yeah, that's basically how we can do laces relatively quickly in Modo.